Good morning. I'm glad you're able to join us this morning for our weekly Sunday school lesson. I appreciate you being here. I hope you've had a good week and hope you're well. I will invite you again to be sure and plan to come to one of our two services we're having on Sunday morning, either 9 o'clock or the 11 o'clock. We're having good services, and so we'd love to have you join us if you can, if you feel comfortable doing that. And in the first service, most of the folks are wearing masks. They're the older ones, the one that's more susceptible possibly to this virus. In the second service, we have more of the younger couples, and some of them do, some of them don't. But anyway, you feel comfortable coming, we'd love to have you. If not, we're doing it where you can watch it on the internet, and so you just do what you feel is right for you. I will tell you this, we are working on some plans, hopefully in the very near future, of getting our Sunday school in some form started back. It won't be our traditional way, maybe as we've been doing it until all this mess is over, but we are trying to work on some plans to get our Sunday school classes where they can at least meet and join together, or some of them, and just have our classes and have our Sunday school in a normal setting, again, or as normal as possible in these times. But anyway, you keep that in mind. Meanwhile, we'll be continuing to do this as on YouTube or as we've been doing. I hope you're getting something out of the lessons. Let's have a short word of prayer, and we'll get into the study of our lesson. Father, I thank you that you've been so good to us. You've blessed us this week. You've given us a good week. You've blessed our church, and I pray, God, that you continue your blessings upon our church. I pray that you would bless those that are listening in today. I pray that you would bless our people. I pray, Father, you keep your protective hand around them. I pray, Father, that you would touch those that are sick. Lord, I especially pray for those in our own church family that's having difficulties or have sickness. Lord, I pray that you would be with them. And I pray, God, that you would just bless us, Father, this Sunday in our services. I pray that you would bless our pastor, bless our search committee, Lord. I pray that you would be with them or be with us. And I pray, Lord, that you would send the person to us that, Father, you want to have in this church. And I pray, Lord, that you would just bless our staff. I pray for Brother Jacob. I pray for Sister Carrie, all of these, Lord, the youth, the children. I pray, Father, for our senior adults. I pray for our young married couples, Lord, I just pray that you'd bless our people. I ask you, Father, to go with us through the day, but help me, Lord, as I try to teach this lesson. I pray it'd be honoring to you, and God, it'd be a help to those that hear. Thank you again for all that you've done for us. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. The topic of our lesson today is, well, that's not the right one. Let me go to the right one. I'm on the wrong lesson there. Let's get to the right lesson, then I'll give you the topic of it. The topic of our lesson today is finding honor. And the subtopic is God recognizes those who faithfully demonstrate his wisdom in their lives. Now, it would be really quite unnerving to find out someone was closely watching you all day long, every day, watching every move you made, listening to every word you said, seeing your reaction to every circumstance or everything that happens to you when you face the day. I don't really care how good of a Christian you are. I'm sure that there are times in your life, even after you've been saved, I'm sure there have been times in your life when you probably looked over your shoulder to see if somebody was watching you or somebody possibly heard what you said. I know you've probably done this because we're all human. And I know that's happened to me on occasions, but we need to really guard our speech, our words, our actions, every moment of the day. What we need to remember is that there is a God in heaven that not only sees our actions, not only hears our words, but he also even knows our thoughts. He knows our intents. He knows our motives. And if we want to live honorable and respectful lives, we must strive every day, every minute of the day, to always do what is right. Not only just when someone is watching or listening, but also when there's no one around but you and God. Someone once said, and I guess that it's true, I believe it's true, that your true character shows in what you say and what you do when you're by yourself. You know, and that's pretty good. I think that's probably true. I believe that we will find the way to find the true honor in life is to live a consistent, dedicated life and always try to please God in all of our words, in all of our actions, in all of our motives, all of our thoughts, and everything. If we will just strive to please Him, I think we will find we can live honorable lives. Now, such is the woman that is described in this lesson today. I guess every person tries to find the perfect mate before they marry. I don't think you're going to intentionally marry someone that you think that this is not someone that I'm compatible with, it's not someone I can get along with, but I'm going to marry anyway. I don't think we do that. I think we all try, I know I did, try to find the perfect mate for us before we marry. Of course, after we marry, it doesn't take long for us to find out that our mate is not perfect. Why? Because she's human just like you are, or he's human just like you are. But as believers mature, as they grow together, they might not be perfect, but they can live together and with each other in honor and even earn the respect of not only their mate, but also earn the respect of their families, their co-workers, and other believers. Now, our lesson text today is found, again, this is our last lesson in the book of Proverbs, and we close out the book of Proverbs in chapters 30 and 31. One of the first things that I noticed in this was that Proverbs, when we first started teaching this in the book of Proverbs back a few months ago, Proverbs began with advice from the Father. And now when we get to the end of Proverbs, it ends with the advice from the mother. Now, I thought that was interesting. To me, that shows the importance of a child having both parents or being raised by both parents. Now, you know, a son needs the influence of a father in his life. He also needs the mother in his life, but he needs that father in his life. The daughter really needs that influence of the mother in her life. She also needs the influence of the father. So really, both sons and daughters both need the influence of both parents. Matter of fact, I believe that is the reason that Satan is in an all-out war, an attack in the day we're living in to destroy the home. He knows if he can break up that marriage, if he can break up that home, that then that child does not have the influence of both parents that they need consistently in their life. And so therefore he's got a whole lot better chance of getting that child to follow what he wants them to do and leading that child astray. So I really believe that's one of the reasons our homes are under the attack they are today. Now, Proverbs 30 and 31 is our text today. And really, these two chapters can be divided into two sections. The first section is in chapter 30. A person named Agur is identified as the writer of this section of Proverbs in this chapter. Now, we don't know the identity of Agur for sure. Some scholars have suggested it may have been another name that Solomon used for himself. Now I looked that word Agar up in Strong's Concordance, and the name or the word Agar actually means among the sages, or one of the sages, or one of the wise, very wise men. Strong's Concordance suggests it's possibly and probably another name for Solomon. And from what is stated in this chapter, in this Proverbs that's in this chapter, I believe that I'm going to that thought. I really believe it probably is Solomon using another name for himself, or naming himself, or referring to himself as one of the wise sages. Now, at the beginning of this chapter, Agar proclaimed that God's word alone provided trustworthy insight into God's character and into how that God wants us to live. Also, he asked the Lord to keep him from being either rich or being really poor. He didn't want to be at the extreme in either way. He figured that if he was rich, then he felt that he wouldn't need to call on God for those things he needed. He would depend on himself and wouldn't have faith and trust in God for what he needed. But on the other side of that, if he was extremely poor, he was concerned that he would begin to think that God did not really care for him and did not love him and care what happened to him. And so he just wanted to fall somewhere there in the middle of not being extremely rich or extremely poor, so that he would continue to know God loved him, but he could continue to trust him for the things he needed. Then the second section of Proverbs, which we find in chapter 31, which really is the source of our lesson today, the writer identified himself as King Lemuel. Now, Lemuel means one that belongs to God. And most Bible scholars believe this also is another name for Solomon. Now, here he credited his mother for the Proverbs in this chapter. Certainly, we can gather from these Proverbs that's in this chapter, she was a woman of great honor. And we see that he had great admiration and respect for her. Now, in this section of Proverbs, his mother presented him with three valuable instructions that he should put into practice as he reigned over his kingdom. The first order, or the first instruction that she gave him, was that he needed to avoid the temptation to use his power as king as a means to engage in immorality or sexual immorality. You know, I can't help but think on that of course Solomon's mother was Bathsheba. And I cannot help think but what came into Bathsheba's mind when she gave him this instruction is that her mind probably went back to her own younger days. You remember her husband was Uriah the Hittite, and he was the one that was a soldier in the army of Solomon. Now, when he was away at war, Solomon saw Bathsheba bathing on the rooftop, and he lusted after her. He called her. He was king. I mean, whatever the king said, whatever the king ordered, that's what happened. And he called for her and told her to come to his place. And there he committed adultery with her. And from that act, there was a child born. Well, before that child was born, after David found out that she was expecting, well, then he arranged it where Uriah would be killed in battle. In other words, he had him killed. And of course, this brought a lot of devastation on David and all of his family and his children. And he suffered greatly for that. I cannot help but think that Bathsheba's mind went back to what King David had done to her when she was married to Uriah. So that was her first instruction. Do not engage in immorality while you're king. And then second, she advised him or instructed him to stay sober by insisting that alcohol would have a negative effect on the decisions that he would make while he was king. She knew the dangers of alcohol, evidently. She knew how it affected the mind, the thinking, the reasoning. And so therefore she warned him not to engage in the consumption of alcohol while he was king. And then the third directive, or the third instruction she gave him, was that he should use his authority to speak up for those people in the kingdom that were powerless, those that were poor, those that everybody took advantage of. She encouraged him to seek justice for everybody equally, for the little man as well as the big man, to treat everybody fairly and seek to help the powerless people and those that needed help. Now, certainly from her advice, I believe that if this was his mother, and I believe it was, from her advice, we can say that she had sought God's wisdom in her life. But from the inspiration and the impact that she had on her son's life, it inspired him to write a poem about an honorable wife of a noble character. Now, whether this was his mom or whether this was just the ideal wife that he was seeking, I don't know. We're not sure. I really think that this is probably the ideal wife that he sought for, and he had married all these women and all of that. But Solomon was imagining, by picturing his mother and what his mother was, he was picturing or painting a picture of the ideal wife for the husband. But also, not only that he want this, or he desired this as an ideal wife, but this wife also played a significant role in her husband's reputation, in the husband's how he was viewed by the rest of the people in the city. And because of the way that she invested her life in her and honored her husband and honored her family and the things that she did, her characteristics, certainly she deserved to be honored and respected. Now, I think that examining this ideal wife characteristics, I think it should inspire all of us that we need to live a more dedicated life to the Lord. I think there's something in it. Of course, there's something there for the ladies. Matter of fact, I want this lesson today to really honor our mothers and our wives, and their lives for the ladies that they are and what they do. I really want this to honor them, and I hope you gather that as we go through this. But in these verses, you will see in all this lesson, the characteristics of a virtuous wife is many. Solomon mentions, as he goes through this, that first of all, she is rare. He also mentions she's restful. He also mentions she's resourceful. He also mentions that she is rich. He mentions that she's responsive to everyone's needs, and that she's always ready to do whatever is necessary. And then because of these characteristics and traits that she has in her life, that certainly she is respected. So let's look at these verses and see what we can find in them for us today. Verse number 10, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Now, the proverb says a virtuous woman is hard to find or is difficult to find. Virtuous here means one that has both inward and outward strength. It talks about one who is able, who is constantly active, and really is mighty. And mighty refers probably to being strong in all moral qualities that she has. And Solomon said a husband who experiences the blessing that comes from having such a wife or such a woman in his life should consider himself to be very, very fortunate. He sees her virtuous nobility and her goodness. in her intelligence, in her insight, in her foresight, in her devotion, in her resolve. And for that reason, when he looks at her and compares her to the most precious stones, in this case, it's rubies, when he compares her to the most precious stones, when the comparison has been completed, she's found to be much more valuable than precious stones. In other words, she is priceless. Now, in the Old Testament, another woman was described as virtuous, and that was Ruth. Ruth is described in Ruth chapter 3, verse 11, as a virtuous woman by Boaz. Ruth's reputation as a person of noble character was known to everyone in Bethlehem who knew her. Evidently, Solomon saw the same characteristics, or was seeking the same characteristics in the qualities of this ideal virtuous woman, or this ideal wife. Verse number 11 and 12. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. Now, a noble's wife's devotion to her husband had a lasting effect on him. He has complete confidence in her and has enduring faith in her. He knows that she'll be faithful to him in their marriage. He never has to wonder if she's out with another man, if she is being unfaithful in her marriage vows to him. He knows that she has been faithful to him. Also, he rests in the assurance that her keen understanding and good sense will always direct her to make the right decisions, or wise decisions. Wise decisions concerning the household. Wise decisions concerning his welfare. Wise decisions concerning his children. Also, he depends on her without any concern that she will ever let him down. She consistently enriches his life in more ways than he could ever imagine. So because of her commitment to their marriage, he doesn't lack or need anything. The word spoil that is used in this verse, and this verse 11, the word spoil really brings to mind the wealth or the plunder that a victorious army would bring home from a battle, and the wealth and pleasure that this would bring to the victor and to his family. Well, the husband of a noble woman enjoys that kind of joy and pleasure. When he sees what she's able to bring into his life, it gives him great joy and great pleasure. Matter of fact, her excellent character makes the life of her husband much more rewarding. And her commitment to him rewards him with the satisfaction of knowing that always, as we say down here in the South, that always somebody has his back. She will always be there for him. What an asset that she was to him. Now, those who know him as a couple, they agree she's the reason he's become the man that he has become, the reason he's been successful, the reason that he has been so blessed. You know, the old saying that I think is probably a lot of truth in it, the old saying, behind every good man, there is a good woman. Now, I don't know about you, husbands out there, but I know that's certainly true in my life. Whatever I am, whatever that is, and whatever I've accomplished, if there's anything I've accomplished in my life, really, I'm telling you, it is because of Helen. It is because of my wife. And there is, I don't know about me being a good man, but I'm telling you, she's a good woman. And I'm glad that she is behind me and with me. Now, this man himself would say that he would not know what had become of him if the Lord had not brought this good wife or good woman into his life. And I'm telling you, I would say the same thing about my life. Who knows where I would be today if it wasn't for my good wife. Now, she would never, this virtuous woman would never do anything that would bring harm to it. She would never do anything. Matter of fact, she wouldn't allow anything bad or evil ever to come in their home or in their marriage. She consistently brings good things to their home. As long as she lives, she can be counted on to be a blessing to her husband, to be a blessing to the family the Lord has given them. So a good wife is always totally committed to her husband. And we could say at the same time that a good husband is always totally committed to his wife. It should work both ways, or it does work both ways. Now, but she is not only committed to her husband, and not only committed to her family, she's also committed to her work. Notice verse 13 through 16. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth the field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. Now, in those days, the days of Solomon, a woman earned a reputation of being a noble character by staying busy with projects that would benefit the home, that would benefit her family. He gives for instance here, she would make wool and flax into thread. Now, in those days, they had no machines to do this for them, so it was done by hand. Of course, wool comes from sheep. Flax was a plant from which the bark would have been stripped away or removed and shaped into fine linen threads. Now, just think about no machines. Consider the time that would have to be invested, as well as the concentration and the difficulty and the time consumed that would be required for such a task as this. But she made the investment. She did this because she wanted to supply her family with the clothing that they needed. And then when she made more than they needed, she would take the garments that she'd made and she'd go to the market and she would sell them for other things that the family needed. Now, in the same way, the industrious woman today, one that works and stays busy, they deserve to be treasured because they don't waste their time. She uses her time wisely and in the best interest of her family. She's consistently at work, willingly, with her hands. Many women today not only work outside the home, but also they carry on with work that has to be done inside the home. I guess it's true that what the old saying that we've heard all of our life, a woman's work is never done. And I'm certainly sure if a woman works both outside and inside the home today, that certainly is true. Now, when Solomon ruled over the kingdom of Israel, he extended the reach of commerce by building a fleet of ships. These ships would go out and they would go to other places, and then they would buy and get goods, and they would bring those goods or those supplies, and they would be sold to the people of Israel. The merchant ships really was a fitting image of a woman of noble character that he was talking about here, who provided her family with whatever they needed. She would extend her reach to however far is necessary in order for her family to have those things that they needed to have. She would exchange items that she made with her hands for whatever she could not produce for them, then she would exchange those for things they did need. I know in Proverbs chapter 6, Solomon had warned God's people that they needed to hate laziness and to embrace work. Now, a lazy person with no initiative would sleep well into the morning. But a woman with noble character, a virtuous woman, would greet the day very early, well before sunrise. She would make sure her family had breakfast. I mean, today, making sure, if we was talking about a woman of today, she would make sure her husband got off to work and the kids got off to school. And then a lot of times today in our society, then they themselves would get ready and go to work herself after doing those things that were necessary for her husband and her children. She also gave the same attention to her maidens, making sure that those that helped in the household. They were also taken care of. Then she would plan her work and instruct her servants on the tasks that she expected them to do while she was gone or while she was busy, and that they should be through with those tasks at the end of the day. So she was always making sure that her household was properly fed, properly nourished, properly clothed, properly instructed. Even those that worked for her, properly instructed and ready for the task that was at hand. Also, providing for the needs of her family would prompt the woman of excellence to engage in a profitable business venture. She would carefully consider a piece of property, maybe that had been placed on the market, maybe it had a for sale sign on that property or something. And she would inspect that property to see if purchasing that property would be profitable. She didn't do that for herself or what she could gain from it. She didn't think about it in that terms, but she would look at it and look at that and check it out and inspect it for to see what kind of, if it'd be a good investment for the family, to see if it would provide the family for things that they needed. So she estimated the potential productivity of the land by growing a vineyard on it. And maybe today we would say, well, see if it would raise produce, or see if she could plant a garden on there or something like that. So this woman that he's talking about here, she also had some business savvy. She had some business expertise. Now I know the wives of today may not do the same things that this wife of Solomon's day did, or this virtuous woman in Solomon's ideal wife did. But if they take care of their household, if they love their husbands, and they love their children, and they love God, and they are faithful in all their duties, she is a woman of honor, and she deserves our respect. Verse 23 to 27. Her husband is known in the gates. When he sitteth among the elders of the land, she maketh fine linen and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchants. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in the tongue of the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Now in these verses, the description of the virtuous woman continued with an observation about a positive effect that she had on her husband. Because of the way she managed herself and the way she managed the household and the family, well, really she enhanced her husband's reputation. Now in ancient Israel, walls were around most cities of any size, and they protected that city from intruders. The gates not only provided people access or exit from the city, but it also served another important function. The city gate served as the location where men would gather to conduct the business and affairs of the city and attend to legal issues. And the husband of a woman of noble character, he would have a superb reputation there. Because of her, he would be considered one of the wise elders of the city, whom others would come to, who others respected, and they would come to for advice and for counsel. But not only that, also merchants made their living by selling and buying and trading merchandise. And because of that, successful merchants, they developed a keen or a trained eye for top quality. And when they traded in the city, they knew where to go. They knew who to look up. They knew that woman of noble character by what she sold. They would look her up. They knew whatever she made was of the best quality and workmanship possible. And they could trust her that she would never try to take advantage of them and slip shoddy merchandise on them. That's why they admired the things that she made with her own hands. They knew when they resold those items that they would bring a top price on the market because they would be good quality products. But her attire consisted of more than just clothing. She also wore the traits of strength and honor. Now, such noble traits proved to be an important asset to her and also to her husband, her children, her family. Because of her strength, her character, and her honor, the future did not frighten her. She faces the uncertainties of life with determination. Instead of wringing her hands with worry and anxiety and fretting over something when things did not seem to go her way, she just deals with the problem. As a matter of fact, she even rejoices in the problem. And the reason is that she does not see that as a stumbling block, but she sees that as an opportunity for her to let her characteristics show through, and also to help her family and to get her family over a difficult time. She has complete confidence that she can handle all the struggles that will come her way. Also, she takes every opportunity to share God's wisdom with all those, not only in her family, but with all those that she meets. She's eager to show them how to see things God's way so that they can do things God's way. She seeks God's wisdom herself, and she wants others that she meets to do the same thing. So because she cares about her husband, and she cares about her children, and she cares about others that she is in contact with, whom she lives with and works with, she also wants them to walk with God, to seek God's wisdom, experience the joy and the peace and the blessings in their life that she has experienced in her own life. And even when she speaks, notice something else. When she speaks, her words always come across with kindness. She's never mean-spirited. She's never harsh to other people. She never unnecessarily is critical, unnecessarily criticizes those that are around her. She may give some constructive criticism on occasions, but it's always in kindness. It's never harsh or mean-spirited. It's never to hurt, but to help and to build up. So instead of wasting her days in self-indulging luxury, she manages her days wisely. She makes the best use of her time. She's never idle. She's always busy, but she never takes a break when it comes to care of her family or attending to her other responsibilities. Of course, she takes time to rest if she's needed. She takes care of her own health because she knows that her family is dependent on her, and she wants to stay healthy. She wants to stay fresh where she can do the things they need for her to do. But really, she approaches every day that it serves as something that is a joy for her to face. Now, her approach to each day serves as a worthwhile model for every believer. We could all benefit from a commitment to work. We could all benefit from a commitment to be a good steward of our time. We could all benefit from taking care of our responsibilities that we have. Now, when we do this, we earn a good reputation that speaks well of our relationship with the Lord. Also, our reputation serves as a way that we can have a positive impact on others for Christ when we meet them. And then finally, we see she receives the honor she deserves from her family. But notice verse 28 and 29. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Now, I'm sure the respect that comes her way from people that work under her supervision, I'm sure the people in town that honors her and respects her, that's great. And I'm sure that the respect that the merchants give her because of her workmanship, that gives her great satisfaction. But I can guarantee you nothing could compare to the satisfaction and the joy that comes to her when her children and her husband honor her and praise her, and they respect her. Well, when the children shower their appreciation on her for her enriching their lives, then they really validate the value of her determination to see her role as a mother as a gift from God instead of a burdensome chore. You know, I think that's a problem in today's society. Many parents see taking care of the children as a chore. It's not a chore, it's a blessing that we have the opportunity to do that. With her words and her actions, she shows the children, that she considers herself to be blessed just to be their mother, and that she can love them and care for them. So they praise her for her love and her devotion to them. Also, when her husband observes the blessings he's been given in such a remarkable, loving and caring wife, he can't stop singing her praises either. He's thrilled that he found in her what his heart longed for in his life. So he declares her to be the best woman in the world. Every husband out there, you ought to have in your mind, you need to believe, really believe and think that you have the best wife in the world. That's the way we need to think. As a matter of fact, he says that she excels or surpasses them all. And then in verse 30, there is a truth that every husband should remember. Verse number 30 says, favor is deceitful, beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. You know, the honor she receives comes from the way that she lives her life and honors the Lord. Some think favor or charm brings honor. But we all know that charm in itself really can be deceitful. Charm can mislead people. Charm is not a reliable indicator of what's really going on in a person's heart. Sometimes charm, especially if it's deceptive, charm really hides more than it shows. And physical beauty can do the same thing. Outward beauty, folk, is vain because outward beauty will soon fade away. As you age, outward beauty just fades. It doesn't stay the same. Even the best efforts. And Lord, these cosmetic companies, they've made fortunes on selling cosmetics and things trying to get, for people to try to keep their beauty as long as they can and look young as long as they can. But I don't care what you do or what you try, even the best efforts to preserve outward beauty will eventually fail because outward beauty fades with age. But for believers, those fearing the Lord brings honor not because of our outward looks, but because of the inward, what has happened inward. The change that He makes within us makes us inwardly beautiful. And we must always remember, inward beauty, I'm telling you, inward beauty is much more important and longer lasting than outward beauty. I know from in my own situation, my wife, I thought when I married her, of course, she was the ideal wife that I wanted and I desired and all of these things. But when I married her, she was to me the most beautiful girl that I knew. Now, as she has gotten older, I'm telling you, to me, because I don't look at the outward as much as I know her now better, I know what's inside her, and to me now, she's more beautiful than ever. It's not that her outward appearance has not changed. It's because her inward beauty has just excelled. And so now, to me, today, she's even more beautiful than she was when I married her. The most important thing in any person's life is a right relationship with the Lord. And that brings inward beauty. If a person walks with the Lord, if they will be praised. But what's more important than that is that we honor Him when we walk with Him. Verse 31, give her the fruit of her hands and let her own works praise her in the gates. So a life of devotion to the Lord renders a reputation that brings honor. Christian women who embrace the model provided here in Proverbs chapter 31, they deserve to be honored. They deserve our respect. She is treasured because not what she looks like, but she is respected and treasured because of her walk with the Lord and the way that she expresses that walk in everything that she does in life. Her works share the story of her devotion to the Lord, and she is worthy of the praise and honor that we can give her. Now, in the days of the Old Testament, the godly wife, whose noble character traits set her apart from other women, there was a public display of honor that took place at the gates. The leaders of the city called attention to her when she walked by or when she approached them. They affirmed that she was an honorable woman, a virtuous woman, because she honored the Lord with her life. They would even rise to acknowledge the fact of that in respect for her when she approached them. Her excellent example provided not only, but provided them with all the assurance they needed that she was a virtuous woman. Now, this virtuous woman's example really provides not only for wives, but for all believers, man, woman, boy, or girl. It provides all believers with the wise path in living in a way that always honors the Lord. Now, some scholars believe Solomon was kind of describing his mom in these Proverbs in this lesson. Others believe Solomon was describing the ideal wife that he longed for, but could never find. I mean, he married a lot of women, but he never did find that ideal wife. I kind of tend to think that that's the case, that he was describing in his mind what he felt like was the ideal wife. And of course, he based a lot of those characteristics from what his mom was. But whichever it was, it does give us insight into what a godly Christian lady should be today. And I want to tell you, my intent, as I mentioned when I started this lesson, my intent with this lesson is to honor you ladies out there that love God, that love your husbands, that love your children, your family, and you make sacrifices daily to make sure that their needs are taken care of. You do it daily, every day. You know, as I was thinking on that, I've worked on this lesson and completed most of my notes probably a week ago, I guess. But as I worked on this lesson, I wondered, now how in this world will I close out this lesson? What could I do? How could I close this lesson? What would be a fitting ending to a lesson that I really wanted to honor those godly ladies out there that's listening to this lesson? Well, I thought about it for a few minutes. I was sitting out on the deck, under the fan, of course. It was hot. But I was sitting out on the deck, and I had my Bible, I had my book and my pen and all that kind of stuff, and I was just writing and thinking, and I stopped and I pondered that question. What could I do that would be fitting ending? And I thought about it for a few minutes, and I just finally decided, I know what I'll do. And I got up from my chair, and I went into the house. Helen was in the kitchen. She was standing there she was there by the stove. I don't remember even what she was doing, probably cleaning a stove or cooking something. I don't know what she was, I don't even remember what she was doing. But I laid my Bible, I laid my book, my Bible, I laid that on the table. And I walked over to her, and I put my arms around her. And I turned her toward me, and I hugged her, I kissed her, and I said, honey, I love you, and I appreciate you. Now, until she listens to this lesson on the internet, she won't know that's why I did what I did. But I wanted for her to know that how much I appreciated her, how much I respected her. And truly for me, in my life, when I married her, I found my ideal wife. I found the one my heart desired. So that's what I wanted to tell you husbands today. If you have not told your wife how much you appreciate her, and even you children, if you've not told your mother how much you appreciate her, go tell her. Tell her what a blessing she is to you and to your family. Father, thank you for the time we've had together today. I pray that this lesson will be a help to someone. I pray, God, that you would take the words I've said and drive them home to our hearts, Lord. Help us, Father, to be, I pray for every lady out there. I pray that you would help them to be the godly lady that you want them to be. And I pray for the husbands and the children, Lord. Help us to appreciate, to honor, and respect the mothers and the wives that God has given us. I ask you to bless this church, bless our people, bless us in our services this weekend. Meet with us, Lord, in a special way. Thank you again for all that you've done for us. Go with us through this rest of the day, through the week. And we love you, Lord, and thank you for all that you've done for us. And we ask all these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen. Join us again next week for our for Sunday school lesson. That was the last lesson in the book of Proverbs. Next couple of Sundays, I believe, we look at the Songs of Solomon and take a couple of chapters out of there and study in there. So thank you for being with us. Join us again next week. God bless you.